Hey, folks, welcome to the Land to Lots global live stream. I have with me the man of the half hour. This is Carter Froelich. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Kary. Good to see you. And just before we start, want to say thank you to you and Ignite Souls
Oh,
for
yeah.
everything you've done.
Well,
So it's
listen,
been
man.
great.
Listen, I told people, I told you actually, when we met, I've never had an author sit down with so much clarity. And to be honest, our whole team, we were like, wow, this is a topic we've never heard about. This is a
Uh-huh.
little bit out of our normal, but the way you broke down this topic, everybody on our team said, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I'm excited about this. So we have people jumping on from all over. You have even your project manager, Jeff, here
Hey,
as well.
Jeff.
So let's talk a little bit about Land of Lots. I love the
Mhm.
subtitle, but talk about the book a little bit.
Yeah, well, the reason that I wrote this, Kary, and we'd talked about it before, but our purpose at launch is to be a hero to the development community.
Wow.
And that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. We primarily focus in the area of how can we help our clients finance infrastructure. We
Yes.
only work for the private sector.
Mm,
And then in the world that I work in, especially related to master plan community development, the situation our clients have and that we have in assisting them is that we have too many costs, meaning infrastructure costs, that we typically, most of the time, there's too little money to go around to finance that infrastructure.
mm,
Or we have too many costs and lots of money, but it's very, very expensive, meaning it
mm.
can cost anywhere from 14 to 25% by the time, all the prefs are paid. And so
Yes.
when you're dealing, with a long-term project, that interest ticker just chews up the profitability of a project.
Ooh.
So a lot of the projects aren't penciling. Add on top of that, where we find ourselves today, the traditional lenders, the banks that were playing in this space, lending money for public infrastructure, are pulling back their horns. They're no longer as aggressive as they were. So
Mm,
money is drying up. Plus, on top of that, the millennials are wanting to buy homes, they're forming families, and we have not been keeping up with the supply of lots. So there is an undersupply of lots. We have huge demand for single family housing. We're not meeting that demand, and that's being reflected in home prices. Although they're depending upon where you're at in the country, they're leveling off.
yes.
However, the good news is in this kind of environment is that
Yeah.
there is a silver lining. The public debt markets are still open for business.
Mm,
There are billions and billions of dollars on the sidelines. And if we are doing our job right, we are going to help our clients access this money to fund public infrastructure and pass on the obligations to repay that debt to the end users of the project.
wow.
And so this is truly is a way for them, and it may see it's a little oversimplified, but a way for them to borrow money to launch master plan communities that they don't have to pay back. So
So good.
that's what I wanted to write the book to take this strategy out to the wider market so
Yeah.
that everybody's aware of it. And then also in the book, we get into a lot of different other strategies other than just financing infrastructure through special taxing districts, but also what are the things that we can do to reduce, eliminate, and defer some of these costs until we have a revenue event? How can we mitigate development risks? And what are the other things that we can do to accelerate cash into our
Mm,
project or into our clients' pro formas? So there's more than just borrowing money. There's a lot of different strategies that are outlined in the book. And we hope that the readers, when they go through this, pick up one or two ideas that'll save them millions and millions of dollars.
it's amazing. I mean, listen, when you talk about how to borrow money you don't have to pay back, everybody in the room is listening. But, as we sat down with you and you really explained to the team the concepts. I mean,
Mhm.
first of all, what I walked away with was Carter knows his stuff. And it's not just Carter knows his stuff for Arizona, but what are some of the other areas that you've worked? Where is this
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah. Every state in the nation has some sort of special district, legislation on the books. The reason being that when we started going from buggies and getting out of the outhouse into actually setting up, water and sewer lines and building streets, uh, we needed a money source to be able to do that. So
Mhm.
most cities or most states, all of them that I'm aware of, have some sort of improvement district statute whereby landowners can come together, go to the public debt markets to put in water, sewer, streets. That's how we built our initial streets in our cities. In the Where we focus primarily are in what we call the Smile States, from North Carolina down the eastern seaboard to Florida, across to Texas,
Yep.
New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, Colorado, and Idaho. Those
Mm,
are the states that have the most robust special district financing, and where you see this used as a matter of fact. A
mm,
lot of people that we have found say, think that, well, I don't have a 40,000 acre master plan community or a 10,000 acre. My project's not large enough to support this. But what I'd like everybody to know is that um, I've been doing this for 40 years, across all of those states,
mm.
so I speak all the different languages. We continue to work in all of those different states. We've been involved in over 500 districts, $17 billion worth of bonds, in projects ranging in size from 5 acres to 56,000 acres and
56.
everywhere in between. Yeah,
Oh
it's a
my
big
gosh.
piece of property. And the smallest bond we've been involved in is 1,200,000, which
Mhm.
is kind of like couch money in the development industry, up to the largest bond that we have been involved with issuing with the underwriters. We're not underwriters. Is 120 million, and so you can see that that's a big spectrum of both projects and bond sizings. But this financing will work for projects of all size.
Mm,
The What I do caution developers is, to make sure you're getting economies of scale,
mm.
because whether you're issuing a $120 million bond or a $1.2 million bond, the attorneys are going to charge you the same amount of money,
Ah,
and that's going to come out of your bond proceeds. So you want to make sure that we're developing economies of scale and making it worth your while to go after
yes.
and access this capital.
Who's your ideal reader?
It would be anybody that's in the development industry. Our primary clients are master plan developers around the
Mhm.
country, followed by home builders. Uh, where we find ourselves doing a lot of work right now is with industrial developers, meaning
Okay.
industrial parks, given the change in shopping patterns.
Mhm.
There's a lot of districts that are being established now to fund the infrastructure to support the distribution centers. But the ideal reader would be someone that has at least $20 million in eligible public infrastructure costs that they need to finance in
Gotcha.
one of the states that we had mentioned along the Smile,
Yeah.
because those jurisdictions are used to using these types of financing mechanisms.
Mm.
And there's not a lot of education that has to go in educating the elected officials and or any regulatory agencies that are required.
It's so good. It's so good. So, I have a few questions here because, again, I'll admit this is a topic that is normally not my type of topic, but I'll tell you what, as I read the book, I thought, "You've really made this simple." And if a person who isn't a massive expert in your industry can read it and say, "Oh, man, this makes logical sense," I think that's a big win. So, here's a few questions for you. How did you get started providing this service line to developers?
Yep. Well, Kary, it may surprise you because I think I'm a pretty fun guy, but I'm a recovering CPA. I'm still licensed in Arizona, California, and Texas. But I started off in the public accounting industry.
Mm,
Um, the I like to tell everybody that I did auditing for 2 years and 2 months too long. And after the auditing experience, I was employed in the management consulting side of an accounting firm by the name of Kenneth Leventhal. Kenneth Leventhal, or KL, was no longer around. They were bought by Ernst & Young in the mid-90s. But KL was the go-to firm for real estate developers, home builders, for anything real estate related. And being the newly minted management consultants, trying to figure out what are we going to do consulting wise, we were looking around. I was based in Orange County, California, Newport Beach, office of Kenneth Leventhal. In 1978, California passed the Prop 13, in which all the state limited the amount of taxes that communities could collect. So literally overnight, the cities in California were out of the infrastructure business. They turned to the development community and said, guys, we don't have any money. You're going to have to build everything. Development community said, fine, but at least allow us to finance it as if we were a city. And in 1982, California passed the Mello-Roos Act, or Community Facilities District Act. We, being the newly minted consultants, read the statute and said, God, let's see if we got this right. We can go to the bank and borrow $200 million and pay that back with points and interest over a 3 to 7 year period. Or we can set up one of these districts, issue bonds for $200 million, and pass that obligation on to the end users of the property. We said, hell, we don't even need a calculator. Let's start doing it. Nobody had ever done it before. And we knew we couldn't break it because nobody had anything to compare it with. Wow. So we started. And our big clients were the big ranches in SoCal. And we started doing the first community facilities district financings for them. And that has subsequently morphed over the years to the point, and for a lot of different reasons, where you can't even build a garage anymore in California without a community facilities district. Wow. But anyway, that's how we got our start. We work exclusively to take our clients on that path from what is your plan? How are you going to pay for it? What can we do to be a service to help you borrow some of this money you don't have to pay back? And then to plan the district, to implement the district, and then to act as a sidecar and ride along with our developers as they're building out their project, issuing bonds, processing their reimbursements, and trying to accelerate the cash into their pro formas. But that, in a nutshell, is what we do from California to the Carolinas and everywhere in between.
That's amazing. That is so cool. So, couple questions. Your business, I want to show people the website because this is pretty cool website here. Let's talk about what your whole business does. So I'm looking here. It's called launch and then -dfa.com. What do you guys do in general?
Well, in a nutshell, in the elevator speech, if somebody asks us, what do we do? And we tell our clients that we are here to help you finance infrastructure, reduce your cost, mitigate your risk, all with the goal of enhancing project profitability. Period. And there's a myriad of different services that go into each one of those categories.
Sure.
Because depending upon what states and what jurisdictions we're working in, we find ourselves having to adapt to different statutes, different policies, different team players, but in essence, the way that we go through these transactions is all the same. And I've been involved in this. Our team members have been involved in this for over 40 years. We've been in the trenches, in all the mud and all the blood. We've had a lot of learning experiences. We've seen a lot of mistakes. But anytime we have a learning experience, we put that into our system, into our checklists that we call the launch sequence. And this sequence that we outline in the book will work in California and it'll work in Utah. It'll work in New Mexico and it'll work in North Carolina. Because the thought that a developer has to go through in a ways that they can, if I can use the term, financially engineer their projects to make them pencil, and then to help take those metrics that they've worked out in their pro forma and educate the jurisdiction to the fact that here's the infrastructure we want to finance, here's how we'd like to do it, here's the benefit to you. Will you help us? Okay. And so it really becomes a public-private partnership. And a lot of times it's educating the staff, that six-lane highway you would like us to build day one. What if we only build 2 lanes? And then over
Wow.
time, as we have people actually living in our community, then we build the other lanes. But let's not have to expend all those dollars right up front. That's just a real oversimplification of what we call our red analysis. But all of that goes into play because you don't just get up, to your point, and decide, I want to be an infrastructure financing consultant, or I want to get into this business. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to it, and you have to learn all the lessons. And to your point, Kary, I don't think my wife even knows what I do. And we've been married for over 20 years. She can't explain it to anybody.
I hear you. Listen, that's okay. I have a question because a lot of people watching this, they'll catch the replay as well. They wonder, wow, Carter has a unique business, and how is a book going to help him? But I see what you've done. You've already leveraging the book. You already have industry colleagues who are endorsing it. You've turned it into a podcast, which again, we teach 18 streams of income, and you're already turning this into content marketing. I'd love for you to speak to the authors who are watching this. Like, what do you hope the book does, and what are you seeing it do for your business?
Yeah, well, and thanks for asking that, Kary. And our mission, literally our mission, that everybody's indoctrinated with in our company is to be a hero to the development community.
Ooh, that's good.
And as part of that, there are other consulting firms out there that say, oh, don't tell our clients anything because then they won't use us. And to me, that's a real scarcity mentality. We are always innovating. We are always looking for ways to come up with new financings, which we've just developed in Texas that we think is really going to help us accelerate mud receivables on the books of developers that we're going out to market on. But because we live in this abundance mentality, we want to share our learning experiences with the community. So that was the reason for launching Plan to Lots podcast, because we have a lot of learning experiences. We want to share those. And then we also want to interview industry leaders in this space. As you alluded to, it's very nichey. It's a very small world. But just small tweaks of this rocket that we launch, if we just tweak it a little bit, the trajectory of the rocket, it's going to take us into a completely different place than if we didn't, touch the nose a little bit. And what we're doing with projects that we launch is we're just taking it and we're touching the nose of the rocket. And so this financing that we're setting up may start off to be a stream, but by the time we're done, it's going to be a raging ocean, if I can use that water analogy, of financing that will come into the income statement of the project to help the project's pencil, but more importantly, to finance this ever increasing expensive infrastructure, and it'll allow our clients to build better projects. For instance, we work with RC Elko, and they do the top 50 selling master plan communities. And they put this publication out every 6 months. And we work with RC Elko. Once they come out with their list, we go and we drill down on all those top selling master plan communities. How are they financing their infrastructure? And 84% of them, are using some sort of special purpose taxing district.
Wow.
And each one of those, on average, those 42 communities are able to finance approximately $32,000 in additional costs through the use of these financing mechanisms. It's a huge, it's quite a range, but that's the average. And when you start showing how you can bring $32,000 in to reduce lot costs, now you're really tipping the nose on the rocket, and you're impacting the decision on should we go or should we not go as it relates to this project. So we're really helping, you know, communities build to improve their infrastructure, and
Yes.
also to help those that are going to be buying homes to have a better experience, a better community, better parks, better schools, better trails and open space to create that connectivity related to the master plan.
I knew the first time we sat down, I really wanted to work with you because what the model is here, folks, is it's a win-win-win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what Carter's about. And anytime you go and create value, by the way, Carter, your story reminds me of a realtor in Florida. And get this, the one of the most successful realtors in Florida wrote a book called How to Sell Your House Without a Real Estate Agent in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. Here's why he's successful. People start reading it and they get to page 10 and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so complex and this
Yeah,
guy knows so much
yeah.
that I'm just gonna hire him." And I almost feel like your book has that strategy where because you're generous, because you're giving away value, it's actually coming back in the form of more business. What do you think?
Well, that's the way we think about it. And because this is such a complex uh, industry, if you will, or niche,
Yeah.
and because some of these projects, I've been with projects since the mid 90s, I'm still working on them. I had more hair back then, you
Wow.
know, and but you see the importance of documenting the transaction. Okay. And in my business, words matter. The financing is something that happens afterwards.
Yes.
But if we can set up the transaction and document in the legal agreements, the development agreements, the financing agreements, when everybody else is really focused on, what does the elevation of the house look like, or how big is the park, or
Yes.
where's the fire station going to be? We set up for our private sector clients. Here again, we don't represent cities. We only represent the private sector,
Mm,
but help them get that language in their documents that will allow them to free up the capital market when they
yes.
come to it, because our rules are different. And to have different rules, you need to know what the impact of the different rules are and
Mhm.
how you're going to get them in the documents and how you're going to explain the win-win-win benefit
Yes.
to the jurisdiction if they even pick up on it.
Well, every time I work with a superstar genius in their industry, I learn a ton. And so as I read your book, I was literally taking notes saying, "Ooh, wow, even though I'm in a different industry,
Yeah.
that's a good principle," just like you're saying. So let's take people, I know we got about 5 minutes left, but let's take people into the actual, I love this that we're able
Yeah.
to do this. We click a button and we can go right into the table of contents. And on Amazon, folks, get your copy today. It's available in paperback, Kindle, hardcover. But you really have this amazing four-part process, and it really starts with the plan.
Yeah.
Talk a
And
little bit.
yeah, and as you know, Kary, we both attend Strategic Coach, and
Yes.
I've used Dan Sullivan's concept of the DOS conversation, and so I want to give Dan credit for that. But the
Yes.
first thing we do when we sit down with our client is say,
Mm,
"What have you got? Let's see where the project is. Do you have a land use plan? What are the biggest challenges you're faced with right now as it relates to this project, meaning the dangers? What are the opportunities that this project allows, meaning what are you trying to accomplish? uh, uh, do you have builders involved? How are the conversations with the city or the county going?
mm,
Where do you have other builders that may be coming into the project helping you with the infrastructure? But we're really looking at, what their opportunities are. Then we're also trying to understand the strengths of the organization.
mm.
What's their experience? What's their team like? What type of projects have they done? What kind of reputation do they have with the city? But we're really trying to understand where they're at, and more importantly, where do you want to go over the next 3 to 5 year period?
That's
What
good.
does success look like for you?
That's good.
And then we ask a very important question, which, unless you're in the finance arena, it may not resonate. But are you internal rate of return driven, meaning you want your money to come in the cash flow sooner,
Mm,
or are you nominal dollar driven, meaning you don't really care when the money comes in, you just want the biggest hunk of money coming in over the development period.
wow.
And I say you only can pick one, because most of the developers will say yes, to both of those. And I said no, you only can pick one, because when we put together our plan, we are going to be basing it upon where you want to go, what your project DOS is, and are you IRR driven or are you nominal dollar driven? Because those are two different roads.
So good.
Then we start crafting the plan.
Mm,
But we can't craft a plan, because every one of these is custom made for
yes.
our client. We've got clients that will come in and say, you know what, every solution is X,
Mm,
every solution is Y. We're agnostic. We want to know where our clients are going. And then, depending upon what state we're in, what are the tools that we can utilize to get you to where you're going, and get you as close to your business plan as possible.
I love that. How does your team feel? You now have a book, which is an eternal asset. It can create lead generation. It can create filters for finding the right client.
Mhm.
What does your team feel about you having published?
Well, I think they're a bit surprised. They knew it was they knew it was
It was
going
in you.
on, and it went
Yeah.
very smoothly, thanks to you and
Oh,
the team at Ignite Soul. So thank
yes.
you. But not only is this something that we can put out for our clients, and hopefully, it's done for them.
Yes.
We want to share this information, but we're also using it as a teaching tool to all the staff members as we bring new people in, as we bring
Ooh,
interns
that's
in,
good.
and more importantly, is if we're bringing somebody in from another firm, we want them to understand what we call the launch sequence, which is outlined in the book.
Yeah.
Because the launch sequence, very simple, and you showed the table of contents, will work all the time.
Wow.
Okay, the name and the name of the
Mm.
financing mechanisms. They have CFD, PID, MUD, TERS, CDD, all sorts of different names. My favorite, the BFD. Dun, dun. That's a joke.
There you go.
But
Like,
they all do the same thing. But we want to train everybody that this is a proven path. If you use the checklists that outline all of the various things that could go wrong, and make sure that we avoid those potholes, we're going to be successful in being a leader, taking our client down the path from
mm,
planning the project to actually getting that money in the bank.
so good. Folks, Carter Froelich, the website is launch-dfa.com. The book is called Land to Lots. Carter, I know you and I are going to follow up. There's much more your team is
Yep.
doing, but you are on fire. It's a total brand match here. We're so excited for all the good that you're creating in the world. And thanks for trusting us as your publisher.
Kary, thank you very much. And thank you to your team as well. I've enjoyed
Awesome.
it.
All right, folks, go get that book today and also subscribe to Carter's podcast. It is fantastic. And if you know somebody in the industry, tag them so that they watch the replay. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you very soon.